Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Kal Halayim Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. With double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. May Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai's peace be bestowed unto you, you hopefully elect. My brother Yahweh from Great Millstone, Orlando. And, like the beloved head brother, Nahalia of my camp, the head brother, he always says, we need the kingdom, man, because, Jake is looking, Jake is searching, Jake is tired, especially now where we are in a culture where the crash out culture is the new thing, the crash out culture, because Jake, for the most part, man, it's just like they know in their spirit, any place is better than this hell that we're living here on earth. The conditions are so bad. Jake has an attitude, Jake has a mindset that if there was a place called hell where your spirit burns forever, in Jake's mind, they'd rather burn in any so-called eternal fire rather than being, this being in this hell that we're living here on earth, which that's what hell is, being in the grave is considered hell, or just being in captivity, position of difficulty, which that's a language that Jake knows all too well, all 12 tribes, being that we're under the curses. And, it's no matter what Jake does, no matter how rich they get in Esau society, no matter where they go, what part of the earth that they go to, Jake is looking for that void to be filled. And the water Yahweh Bashim El Shai, that void doesn't get filled until the Lord the Lord wakes us up to this truth. Only till then. That's only until, that's when Jake, that this void gets filled within us, is when the Lord wakes us up to this truth. But nevertheless, even 2/3, a lot of 2/3, they're seeking for that void to be filled. They're inquiring, because we're all pilgrims at the end of the day. Matter of fact, I'm gonna read this real quick in Hosea. Hosea chapter 9 and 17. My God will cast them away because they did not hearken unto him. So you see, because real quick, I'm going to come back to that. Being that us, being the Lord's people, we broke his laws, statutes, and commandments. We broke the covenant. Because Jacob look at our situation as a nation of people, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. Like I said, it makes you inquire, why are we the last hired, first fired? Why do we always get the butt end of the stick? Why did we go through slavery? All these questions, right? But again, it doesn't make sense until we are called into this truth. Because Jake You know, they'll blame Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. And that's why the scriptures go into a righteous man complaining. Why doeth a man complain? You know, because as we grow in wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, we come to realize that we are the ones that fucked up. It's not Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai's fault, you know. And being in this hell on earth, this captivity, because that's what being incarcerated, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be a thing where you're locked up, and during that incarceration, you're supposed to reflect on the crimes that you did to get you there in the first place. Because that's what the world is under Esau, Edom. It's a prison. And America, out of all places, is that maximum security prison. You know? So only the elect are waking up and confessing their faults, acknowledging that we're the ones that went off. You know, only the elect are confessing their faults. About the 2/3, they're past the point of being rehabilitated. They're past the point of no return. You know, because I've been looking at a lot of these videos dealing with these Jakes in particular, ex-hitmen, right? And you know, so on and so forth. You know, a lot of these Jakes, they grow up being the product of their environment. You know, they go through certain of these experiences, and you know, they come out of them. Some of them, a handful of them, they come out of them to get these type of testimonies. You know, but again, it goes to show you that we need the kingdom. You know, we need the kingdom. But reading this in Isaiah 22, because again, being that we broke the covenant that we made with Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, so because we broke the covenant, I'm going to go to Isaiah 22 in verse 17. Behold, Yahweh will carry thee away with a mighty captivity and will surely cover thee. Because call Allah Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Again, starting with the elect first and foremost. You know, real quick, and Slaki, I'm all over the place. I want to go to this real quick in Exodus 24 and 4. And Moses wrote all the words of Yahweh and rose up early in the morning and built an altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto Yahweh. So basically, just real quick point, you know, because again, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, you know, wherever the elect are scattered, you know, members of the elect, they are brought from all walks of life. All right. And dealing with the foundation of the kingdom of heaven, being that it starts with the men, those elect men, those choice men, the first fruits, which Yahweh Shai, he's the first fruit of the first fruits. You see, because I always say, you know, every brother is a walking testimony. Again, being that brothers come from all different walks of life. All right. So, you know, the Lord allowed certain of these choice men to go through certain of these experiences. Because again, you know, it starts with them first and foremost under Yahweh Shai. All right. And from these men, you know, the Lord has called them out of spiritually. He's called them out of the ways of this world. You know, and being called into this glorious truth. Because like King Solomon said, I was almost in all wickedness, right? In Proverbs 5, you know, and like I said, pertaining to brothers, again, the Lord allowed certain, allowed brothers to get, certain experiences, before it got to the point where they were beyond being rehabilitated. Because like I said, 2/3, they're too far gone. But when it comes to the elect, the Lord allowed them to get to a certain point to where, hey, it's time, because again, it starts with them first and foremost. All right. Dealing with them first and foremost. So that way, when the innumerable multitude, when they flock to the leaders, all right, brothers will be ready in that day. Because again, the Lord scattered us. But now we're in the time where, hey, it's time to come back home. Because again, we are on our journey to the kingdom being established on earth. Because again, it starts with us first and foremost. The kingdom of heaven is in us. And it's going to be established on earth as it is in heaven. So it starts with those leaders. Those pillars is what I wanted to get out of Exodus 24. All right, the pillars. Those pillars, that's what upholds and maintains a foundation. So, those elect men. You see, the Lord is raising them up. And though the Lord scattered his people, we're in the time of the great gathering. So that's why going back to Isaiah 22:7, behold, Yahweh will carry thee away with a mighty captivity and will surely cover thee. Because again, the Lord scattered us, but the Lord would always preserve his elect. So that's why, again, call Halayim Yahweh Ba'Shem El Shai. The Lord is he's standing true to his word. Because again, man, brothers are walking testimonies. Speaking to you specifically, you in your walk, hey, between you and Yahweh Shema Shai, what where the Lord called you from. Look at where you come from, where you came from. Look at where you're at, and look at where you're heading. So the Lord is standing true to his word. Verse 18, it says, he will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country. There shalt thou die, and there the chariots of thy glory shall be the shame of thy Lord's house. So you see, because again, going back to the Hosea 9:17, my power will cast them away. So you see, as I just read in Isaiah 22, the Lord casting us off, kicking us out of the land of milk and honey because of our disobedience, and toss us on the other side of the world, because this is where America, now the elect are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, but the main destruction and deliverance is going to take place here in America. All right, which is on the other side of the world, man. Because we pissed the Lord off so much. I always, in reference to Isaiah 22, man, I always liken it, because going into how we were being tossed to and fro, those slave ships, and of course that's the physical aspect, but the spiritual aspect is like, you ball up a piece of paper and you just chuck that bitch across the room, because spiritually speaking, that's pretty much what the Lord did. He threw us on the other side of the world. Now we're speaking a bastard's language over here, and Jacob's over here wearing Crocs, skinny jeans, pink hair. We're prophesying in sackcloth. We are through and through. But again, that's because of our disobedience. So now, you know, reading on, it says, because they did not hearken unto him, and they shall be wanderers among the nations. So, like I said, Jake is seeking, searching. Jake is trying to fill this void. You see? So with that being said, I've got this video here. This is off of the Connect with Johnny, what's his name? Johnny Mitchell. All right, and if you just so happen to see this, this is just for informational purposes, fair use. All right, copyright disclaimer, I'm not making any type of monetary gain. This is just for informational purposes. So with that being said, with this interview with I believe this Jake's name is Ali Gonzalez. I'm pretty familiar with this particular Jake, because he's one of those. He's seen some shit, And like I said, certain Jake, man, they grow up in a particular environment. They end up becoming a product of their environment. And a lot of these Jakes, man, well, a handful of these Jakes, they're pretty much able to get out to tell the tales, So this is just another one of those cases. This particular Jake being a hitman for the, cartel and whatnot. And, of course, in this interview, he giving his, life story and things of that nature. But pretty much the point in this interview, which I'm going to play, the interviewer is asking, the Jake is being asked about, because the scriptures talk about how wickedness, or rather the night is far spent, because eventually shit gets old, shit gets played out. And this is why, again, Jake, man, they hop around, man. They're like children tossed to and fro. They're Jake is always looking for the next new wave, because they're wanderers, as I just read, So, without further ado, go ahead and play this.
They extortion, kidnapping, avocado, extortion, and coke. For the Sinaloans. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so it's 2021, 22. You see kind of the writings on the wall, and it sounds like you're getting tired. You're tired of this life a little bit, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You're tired of fighting. You've been at war for, you can only describe your life, the life of a sicario in a cartel, as a constant state of war.
Yeah.
You never get to relax.
You don't.
So how do you leave it all?
I start questioning myself, I start questioning myself in regards of death, because you're no longer afraid of dying. You're always dealing with death.
You've taken life
every day
so much.
It's like, you're gonna die. But what is there to come after death? I was trying to my head was trying to put those pieces, like, okay, you're ready to die. And I had encountered several times. I got ambushed by the Mexican government, the estatales. They ambushed me, and we got into a crazy gunfight. I almost got killed. I made it out because of the people that I was with. And that just put into perspective. Yeah, you're gonna go any day. Now, is it what you're doing worth leaving this world? I started questioning everything that I was doing. I think that you got to understand that these cartels are a cancer for society, especially for society in Mexico, for the youth in Mexico. Why? Because they look up to you. They admire pistoleros. They admire narcotraficantes. And it got to me when I went to where I originally would stay. And a close friend of mine, a youngster that I knew before he could even walk, and now he was 10, 11-year-old. He saw me and he's like, I want to be like you when I grow up. And I looked at him and I'm like, no, you don't. What are you talking about, brother? You need to go back to school. Like, you have your whole life in front of you. You have your parents with you. Why would you pick up a rifle and destroy your life? Because at the end of the day, my life was done. Like, I had nowhere else to go. All I knew was to kill people, to be in that game. So that's why even after I ended up coming out of prison, I didn't leave. I didn't try to make my life, again, I went back into the same environment because that's all I knew. So that basically put me into that situation where, are you going to die like a dog and die for something that has no honor? Because it has no honor, brother. At the end of the day, you're fighting for the rights to steal, to extortion, to kidnap, and to poison your own society.
Right.
And I said to myself, I'm smarter than this. I speak English. I speak Spanish. Like, I understand a little bit more than most of these people.
Right.
Like, I've survived most of these people. I'm not going to die here as a coward. Because at the end of the day, I think I have respect for those people that get up every day in the morning and they go to work to put that piece of bread on their family's table. Those are the real gangsters. For me, like, I look at them and I'm like, yeah, like, this guy chose to work hard to provide for his family. We chose a non-ethical, easy way to make money. Obviously, it's not easy, but it's not right at the same time, because you're not being beneficial for anyone, So,
And you see, because this is the type of environment that Esau, the so-called white man, being the devil that he is, this is the type of environment that he creates for Jake. All right. Because again, Esau, he plants these bugs. And, we have so many examples of Jake just becoming the product of the environment that they grow up in, which is all by design by Esau, well, I'll say by the Lord, because you can't give Esau too much credit. Can't give him any credit, because even when it comes to his abominations, his wickedness, his idolatry and everything, most of that shit goes back to him. So when it comes to wickedness in general, Esau is not even the originator when it comes to wickedness. So, but nevertheless, these things are set up by design, because here it is, Jake, they fight for blocks, but Esau, he fights, because, Jake, man, they fighting over a block, that doesn't belong to any one of them, They fighting for a block with the so-called white man's name on it. And this is the same shit Esau does on a grand scale of things, on a grand scheme of things. He fights for countries, continents, because that's all Jake is. He's nothing but a dollar value version of Esau, Because, matter of fact, let me grab this real quick in Jeremiah 5. Jeremiah 5. Let's start at verse 25. Your iniquities have turned away these things, and your sins have withholding good things from you. So you see, all right, we can't blame Yahweh Shemel Shah for anything. All right, we're the ones that fucked up. And that's why, again, being in this incarceration, only the elect would come to understand that, man. Real quick, I'll grab this and I'm gonna come back. In Jeremiah. Jeremiah 31. And this whole chapter is good. Just went over this last Friday. Last Camp Friday with the brother Arya. Pretty much went into this whole chapter. So it's a good chapter. But what I want to get is, let me just get to the point. Jeremiah 31 and 19. Surely after that I was turned, I repented. Because you see, you get to a point where it's just like, damn, you know, like I said earlier, you start inquiring, why is it thus? Again, why are we first hired, last fired, or excuse me, last hired, first fired? You know, why are these things thus? And then again, you know, we read about the curses and, you know, we get into our, you know, these records. Because essentially, you know, we read about our forefathers, but essentially we're reading about ourselves. You see, that's why I believe that, one, because, you know, men lived a lot longer back in the ancient world. So the Wadi Al Shai shortening the lifespan, you know, reducing the lifespan, you know, because imagine living to be 3, 4, 5, 600 years old in this captivity, man, you know, so that's a favor, you know. And secondly, you know, the Wadi Al Shai, he didn't give us a remembrance of who we were. Because goddamn, if we knew what we did in our past lives, oh my goodness, you know, because that's the thing, Jake knew, and that's why the Lord had to completely strip us of everything. Because what Jake is doing now, they were doing it back then. Speaking the Hebrew, you know, knowing that they were going to come back 3 to 4 generations. Jake was going off knowing they were going to come back. So that's why, you know, at the end of the day, man, we earned this ass whooping. Again, like I quoted, this is why, you know, we complain less and less, you know. You know, we complain less and less. We get it. We fucked up. And we fucked up bad. Where was I at? Verse 19 again, Jeremiah 31:19. Surely after that I was turned, I repented. And after that, so you see, while we're in this incarceration, again, you know, the Lord has given us that remembrance. Like I said, we're reading, going into our history, reading our records about ourselves, you know. Mind you, we were the ones sacrificing our children to Molech, all right? And all the atrocities that we read about, that's us. We're reading about ourselves. So, you know, all this, while, you know, is coming back to our remembrance. The Lord is bringing all these things back to our remembrance. So coming to this understanding, you know, while we are incarcerated, that's why, man, you know, we're in that repentant state. You see, it says, surely after that I was turned, I repented, and after that I was instructed. I smote upon my thigh, I was ashamed, yea, even confounded, because I did bear the reproach of my youth. So you see, because it said I smote upon my thigh, I was ashamed. It's like, damn, you know, when you fuck up, man, you just like, you know, sometimes you just hit yourself on you hit yourself on the thigh, like, you know, you snap your finger, like, damn, dog, you know, I fucked up, you know. So that's where we're at with it, you know. Like, damn, Lord, you know, Salakia, you know, man. So that's why it makes sense, you know, being in this captivity. We deserve this ass whooping. Scriptures talk about how we provoked Yahweh Bashim outside of jealousies. So we asked for this, you know. Back in Jeremiah 5 and 26. For among my people I found wicked men. They lay in wait as he that setteth snares, and set a trap, they catch men. As a cage is full of birds, so are their houses full of deceit. Therefore they are become great and waxing rich. And you see, when it comes to these, because these guys like P. Diddy, right? You see, these are the gatekeepers that Esau raises and he grooms. We see all the shit about P. Diddy and R. Kelly, man. You know, where do you think he gets that shit from? Esau. That's why reading on verse 28, they are waxing fat, they shine, yea, they overpass the deeds of the wicked. They judge not the cause of the fatherless, yet they prosper, in the right of needy do they not judge. So here it is, Jake, they overpass the deeds of the wicked. So here it is, you got the wicked, Esau, Edom. They look at Jake like, damn, you know, they take notes from Jake, you know. because I always use this as a comparison. You'll see between a Jake man and an Edomite man. You know, here it is. You'll have Esau, man. He'll be just a regular Mo. And oftentimes you couldn't even tell because, Esau he doesn't add flavor to anything. So you'll see Edomite that's a Mo. And you'll just think he's a regular. But here it is when it comes to Jake, man, they are all type of flavor to this shit, man. You see Jake, man. And he makes it known he's a Mo. Wearing all type of stilettos. Jake will wear the hoop earrings. Hey, Jake, man, he'll outdo an actual woman. He'll outdo an actual woman. That's why, hey, on another note, be careful, man, dealing with these women, man, or something that may appear to look good, because, hey, man, you never know, you never know, dog. Might be a whole dude, man, a whole flaming Mo. But it goes to show you how that's just an example of how they overpass the deeds of the wicked. So playing on.
At that stage of my life, I had the option of killing the lieutenant that was trying to kill me, and at the same time killing people that almost gave their life for me, defending me, or do I just run? And I chose to run instead of murdering people that had defended me, that had fought for me.
You didn't let anyone know you were leaving?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I called some of my close friends and two people that were from the boss's area. So these two people were put in by the bosses to supervise everything. So basically, they were just there to collect information and pass it on.
Yeah.
Because the boss wasn't happy with what the other lieutenant was doing and the problems that we were having with each other.
Yeah.
So I called them up and I told them, you know what? Like, I'm done. And they're like, what do you mean you're done? I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm like, you guys can tie me up and take me back to the boss, and I'll tell him personally, I don't want this life anymore. These people had so much love for me that they're like, nah, you're good, man. You're good. Just make sure that if you're done, you're done. We'll let the boss know what's going on. Because I had already gathered intel about what was really going on with this lieutenant and with other rivals. So he was basically trying to make a deal for both of them to end up in my life, basically, and end the people that I have around me. So he was trying to make a truce with them to get me. So they had already seen everything, and they're like, it's good, you can go. Just make sure that if you go, you're done.
Yeah, don't come back.
I did.
So where's the first place you went? Where'd you go?
Mexicali.
Okay, so you went back to the border.
Back to the border.
What was your thinking? What were you planning on doing?
Just trying to survive, I think. It's hard to reintegrate to society, especially when you come from a world where a disrespect is handled right there and then.
And again, that's a product, these seeds that Esau plants. A strategic move by Esau to the point where, like I said, 2/3, they're past the point of being rehabilitated. I was watching another Jake, another ex-hitman. He was going to his testimony. Of course, he had to, dissimulate people, and stuff like that. Torturing people and stuff like that. When you watch these interviews, that particular interview, he's again, going into his testimony, his life story, how he, the things that he did. Like I said, dissembling bodies and stuff like that. And you can see you can see the trauma in Jake. You can see the trauma in Jake, man. Because even the beginning of the interview, the Jake, man, he was going into his upbringing with his father, his mother. Now, something that I noticed throughout the interview, he's going into these acts that he's committed with a straight face. Like I said, you could tell he's still traumatized and whatnot, but he's going through the interview with a straight face. But when he's going into the relationship with his father and his mother, man, his grandmother, You know, he's just going into his testimony with his parents. You know, his mother being a drug addict. His mother was so steeped in drugs that when he was born, they didn't think he was going to make it because he had hints of, you know, the particular drugs that his mother was using. It was in his system as a baby. So they didn't think he was going to make it, you know. But basically, he's just going into his father, his mother, and, you know, his grandmother. And Jake is breaking it down. You know, he's crying, you know, he's hurt. But here it is, the whole interview, he's going into what he's done, you know, the acts that he's committed as a hitman, torturing people and stuff like that. And he has a straight face. But when he talks about his father, his mother, his grandmother, you know, Jacob, he breaks down like a big baby. Because like I mentioned with this whole crash out culture, you know, typically when children act out, man, because that's what 2/3 are, you know, they're children. They're not but bad kids, you know. And typically when children act out, it's just oftentimes, man, 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, man, they just want attention, you know, from the father, from the mother, you know. And that's how I look at it when it comes to Jake. They want to go home, you know. They want to go home. You know, Jake, they just want the love and attention of Pops. They just want the love and attention of their father, man. So that's what it boils down to, how I see it at the end of the day, you know. Because again, oftentimes when children act out, man, they just want attention, man. You know, I was like, damn, here it is. This dude is doing a whole interview about the shit that he's done with a straight face. But when he's going into his father, his mother, and his grandmother, man, you know, Jake, it's like he's a big kid, you know. And this Jake, man, he was torturing himself. You know, he was tortured. He's been tortured, you know, because over there, especially over there in the land of Issachar, man, you know, there's some cold Jakes over there, man. You know, them some cold Jakes, you know, dealing with them cartels or whatnot, man, they're some cold cats. You know, hey, ISIS ain't got shit on 2/3, man. You know, especially when it comes to those northern kingdoms over there, the northern tribes, man. ISIS ain't got shit on them wicked 2/3, man. So, but again, it just goes to show you, you know, Jake, man, they lash out, they crash out because they just want attention. Because see, again, Jake is wandering. They're wanderers, you know, and they're seeking, they're inquiring.
With a 9mm, you know, everything's about respect in my environment, the environment that I would live, and trying to reintegrate into society where respect is no longer a thing among people, among a lot of people, you know.
Yeah.
It's easy for them to disrespect, not knowing that they have a person that, for disrespect, will take your life without blinking. And I fell into depression, living by myself in Mexicali, and trying to make peace with myself for leaving the people that I cared for. Because even though these guys were killers and you could say whatever you want for them, but my loyalty was with them, and I knew that their loyalty was with me.
Yeah.
I respect anybody that wants that would get into a car knowing that they might not come back.
Right.
You know? So
it doesn't make them inherently bad people. This is just where they come from, and it's part of life.
Yeah.
So I understand that you're lonely, you're isolated.
Yeah. And
did you get a job, or why did you not return to the United States?
I was working as a bricklayer.
Oof.
Driving a bicycle, and in my head was like, bro, you used to drive these badass cars with weapons on your side, money in your pocket, women in the back, drugs in the front. What are you doing driving a bicycle and going to bricklay?
Yeah. Wow.
I would struggle with myself because architects or the people that were in charge of the construction site would come, and they would try to like humiliate me. Not like inside of me, I was like,
I could kill you.
Yeah, like I was like, man, like, you better not test me.
You don't even know,
bro. Like it was hard, and it was difficult. It got to the point where I fell in depression. I literally fell in depression.
Why didn't you come back to the United States?
I had lost connection with my family. Like we no longer had, like I ended up growing by myself, and we separated. So we no longer had that.
And essentially, we lost connection with our power. St. John 5. Just brought this out yesterday. St. John 5:25. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. So you see, because we're being plugged back into the source. Once again, all right, again, the Lord promised that, Jacob shall not be utterly consumed. There will be in time in history, which we're in that time now, where, the Lord will raise his elect up, lest we all be as Sodom and Gomorrah. So we're in that time now, the great calling, the great awakening, and the Lord calling the elect of his people back, starting with the elect first and foremost. You see, and now it's time to come home. All right, captivity after captivity. All right, this is the last go around, man.
Confidence of asking them, I want to go back to the U.S. I didn't have anybody. I chose the life I chose, and I ended up by myself. So yeah, it's.
How'd you end up in London, England?
That's a crazy story, brother.
You're the only Mexican in England. That's the name of this episode.
In my depression, I was looking for a way out, because I had already gone to Christian churches, to Catholic churches, to Jehovah's Witness, trying to find something that would give me peace. Because I knew I had done a lot of evil and a lot of bad in this world. And in one of these days, it was the 25th of December. In Mexico, Mexico is very Christian, and they celebrate Christmas like I think no other place.
They don't even move Coke over the holidays. Throughout Latin America, it's a fact. They take it off.
You see, so me being by myself and seeing how everybody was in their families, it just got to me, and I was thinking to myself, like, why don't you just end your life? Like, you have not done any good for no one. You've not done anything that's beneficial for anyone. Take your life. In prison, in state prison, I saw a lot of homeboys that were there for kidnapping, and they had 140 years of prison, and they were never going to come out. And when they wanted to die, bro, they would tie themselves out from this height, and they would sit their butts and
break their necks.
Imagine how much you wanted death to kill yourself from that height.
Oh, Jesus.
So I knew that if I wanted to die, I was going to be able to do it. So I started making my rope. I had some lasso in the apartment where I was living, and in my head I was like, man, I'm tired of this life. Like, I'm tired. I'm tired. And I was looking where to hang myself. But at the same time, there was a voice in me that said, you've never been a coward, bro. You've never backed out of anything. Like, look how far you've come to die like a drug addict. Because I got hooked on meth, bro. I got hooked on meth in my depression, when before in the cartels I had never touched meth.
Yeah.
And I remember I would make fun of people that would use meth. And now I was the meth user. I was the one in depression. I was the one trying to take my life. And in this scenario, I remember I had touched rock bottom, bro. I had nothing else going for me at that moment. I had nothing else. Like, when I mean nothing, brother. My only thoughts were, go back to what you were and get killed back where you are. But in my head, I had those voices that were telling me, you've never been a coward. You've always stood up and dealt with things the way that you need to deal with things. So I said to myself, I'm not going to hang myself today.
So, scriptures talk about that small, still voice. And we've all heard it. We've all had that experience to where it's just like, like I said, the Lord, you get to a certain point where it's just like, man, there's got to be more to this, man. This ain't it. And that's when Jake starts to ask questions. That's when Jake starts to inquire. That's when Jake starts to, to seek, to fill that void. So the Lord allows us to get to a certain point to where, he taps us on the head, man. We hear that small, still voice. And, from there, our pilgrimage to the kingdom.
And I sat down on my bed. And as a grown man, and with my balls in my hands, bro, I started crying. I started crying because I was tired of my life. I was tired of feeling all that trauma that was boiling up inside of me from my childhood to what I've seen, to the people that I've lost in my life that were good friends, that showed me loyalty and ended up dying because of me.
Right. And you let out 20 years of tears.
Bro,
wow.
That's
so good for you.
It was difficult because
it's healthy though.
At the moment, I remember I asked if there's something that is truth, that has truth, guide me to it. And I was talking to myself, thinking that if there's anything higher, if there's a higher being that's listening to me, I'm not going to name it. I'm not going to say Jesus, Jehovah. I'm not going to say anything. I didn't even say God. Right? Just say, if you're out there and you're looking at me and you see my position, I can't no more. Guide me to something that is truthful. And God guided me to Islam.
Wow.
And in a matter of 3 years, brother, my life just flipped.
Yeah, you look great.
So you see, and, again, we all have that, that testimony, where we're just like, man, in some cases like this, Jake, you don't even put a title. You just, what they would call speak to the universe. If there is a God, right? If there is something out there, lead me to the right path. Now, dealing with this particular Jake, I believe he's a Muslim now, but still it goes to show you how they're tossed to and fro. Jake is seeking. He said he was a Christian, he was this, he was a that. I believe he's a Muslim now. But we all have that moment where it's just like, damn, if you're out there, hey, lead me to the right path. Because that's just Jake's spirit. Jake knows. Jake is spiritual by nature. Jake knows the scriptures talk about that zeal, but it's not according to Yahweh Shema Shai. That's why the Lord has to call us. You got fake and phony Christians. They talk about how, well, I decided to find the Lord. No, man. The Lord has to call you. You don't find the Lord. He finds you. He calls you. He calls us. So we all have that moment where it's just like, man, God, in some cases, to the unknown God, which is what I got here in Acts 17 and 22. Then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill and said, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. For as I passed by and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription, To the unknown God, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you. And you see, again, because like I said, it starts with the elect first and foremost. All right. And from there, the elect, preaching the gospel in the name of Yahweh Shema Shai. That's why it is a mission of seeking out those of a like mind, because we were once in that state of seeking, searching, inquiring. And the Wadi Yahweh Shema Shai, we are here where we are at now. But now it's time to seek out those of a like mind, to gather up the rest of the elect through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. Because just like how we were when we first, before the truth, when we first found the truth, there's other Jakes out there, inquiring, to the unknown God. Jake is just out here, And I'm talking about the elect, because 2/3, a lot of them, they're inquiring too, but just the way that the Lord set it up, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. This is only for the elect. So it goes to show you the spiritual connection, even without being connected to the source. Jake has it's just in our spirit, as far as there are higher power, a high being out there somewhere. That's just something that comes with Jake, man. They have that zeal, but it's just not according to knowledge. Well, we have that knowledge. And 100% truth at that, if I may add. Starting with the apostles of Great Millstone, the bishops. You see, and, it's all spiritual, because we're a spiritual people. We are the people of Yahweh Shema Shai. And it's time for us to come home, man. The Lord is calling his people home. But Lord willing, this was edifying. Giving all praises to Yahweh Shema Shai. Shalom to you, hopefully elect.